everybody, and welcome to DEARG, the podcast that brings you education and information on endometriosis and adenomyosis. This week, I'm joined by Dearbhail Ormond. Dearbhail is well known to us in the community for the Frendo app and the Frendo at Work programme as well too. Dearbhail, welcome to the DEARG podcast. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and how you've got involved in all this?
Yeah, thanks so much, Kathleen. Thanks for inviting me on. I'm delighted to be here. I am a endometriosis sufferer and adenomyosis, and I built Frendo and Frendo at Work as a result of my experience, my frustration, my isolation around the illness. I first had symptoms when I was about 15 or 16. And it took over 18 years to get a diagnosis of endometriosis first. And so I developed Frendo app, the solution first, which is a community, a tracker, and a screening tool for those who are diagnosed with the disease, but also who suspect they have symptoms, really to help people kind of get a sense of validation around it, because I never felt I had a sense of validation. I felt really isolated. I felt like I was a burden, and I went to doctor after doctor, not really feeling like I could explain those symptoms in the right way, and feeling dismissed every time I left that doctor's office. And so I created the app to be able to communicate and articulate what those symptoms were in a better way, and for that GP or doctor to understand what those symptoms were. So that really is what I hope Frendo does. And I really hope it gives people a community as well, where they feel much less alone.
And that's so important, isn't it? Because, we often struggle for a long period of time, and your own diagnosis taking 18 years, that's a long time to be without answers and a long time to be without that support and community around you. And often when we do get a diagnosis, that's what opens that up to us. And in terms of your, the length of time it took to get a diagnosis, were you experiencing a lot of symptoms during that time?
Yeah, I certainly was. I always kind of pause on those questions, because I think, we forget a lot of our pain, we forget. And I'm not sure if that's, intentional in a way, naturally for us humans. But like, I often have these conversations with my mom, and I say, I've never had migraines. And she says, you had migraines all the way through school, and this was before you were diagnosed. So yeah, it really interfered with my school days into university. I was quite sporty, really sociable, and I definitely remember pulling back from all of that because of like really excruciating and erratic pain in my pelvis and in my abdomen. And also feeling quite, as a teenage girl, feeling quite embarrassed. Yeah, like you would suddenly become very bloated. And I often explain it, I don't know how else to, but like a very tight rope would just suddenly wrap around your lower abdomen. And that like a pain, like up on, 9 or 10 on pain scale. And just, I would go from kind of being like one size in dress size up to, to almost 2 sizes bigger. And not that that's necessarily, it's kind of a silly way of explaining it, but I suppose when you're a young woman, I think that does affect your self-esteem. And it's also, I think, the unknown, as a young woman, not knowing what's going on with your body. It's changing. It's kind of, you don't know why you're feeling so unwell. Why are you vomiting? Why are you so bloated? Why have you got pain in your lower back? and why can't I just be like able to live like a normal other 16, 17, 18-year-old girl? So I found myself isolating myself quite a bit, because not necessarily I was embarrassed, but just I preferred to kind of be on my own and deal with things on my own. And I saw that stretching on into my 20s. And I just felt it felt easier to kind of deal with things on my own. And the pain, I suppose for me, the symptoms were a lot of lower back pain, a lot of nausea, heavy periods. And then the symptoms changed, and they still change. I think people often say to me, but why would someone need Frendo, all the way through their life in a way? And I say, well, my symptoms now are actually really quite different to what they were in their early 20s. My sciatic pain is very different. Like I wouldn't have necessarily had that in my early 20s. And, I didn't get upper abdominal pain. They found disease in my upper abdomen. So it's a very unusual disease, and it's a very unpredictable disease. And the progression rate, as we know, can grow and can evolve when we don't tackle it as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and you've touched on two really important things there that the Frendo app addresses, and one is that community, and to try and lose that sense of isolation. And when we do withdraw, when we're in pain or having a lot of symptoms, it's important to know that there's other people out there like that, but also the symptom tracking. So if we take the community side first, can you tell me how Frendo addresses that sort of community?
Yeah, absolutely. So the app has a community feature as well as the endo-specific symptom tracker. So, earlier when I was living with endometriosis first, there were cycle trackers out there, but we know that endometriosis is a very, the symptoms can vary from person to person. So I built the tracker very specifically with endo in mind. So it's an extensive symptom tracker and you can customize it as a result. The community also is very specific to endometriosis and adenomyosis. We have a lot of adenomyosis stories in there as well. So there are Frendo stories. So those who share kindly their diagnosis journeys, their fertility journeys. And when I had the idea of Frendo, I was struggling with kind of, the Facebook groups that were all I felt quite negative. And I never found that there were action orientated and positive stories out of it. And yet, they're really difficult, challenging, life-changing diseases. But the community, I wanted to focus on some positive stories, and you will find in the community in Frendo positive fertility journeys and positive fertility stories in there, as well as people's really difficult diagnosis journeys or fertility journeys. You'll also find credible resources in the community in terms of how to talk to your boss about telling them I have endometriosis or adenomyosis. How do you tell someone you're starting to date that you have endometriosis? How do you tell them that you have painful sex, that you find sex, painful, or it's painful after sex, that I need to actually, there are specific positions that I need to have sex in. Really kind of making you feel that you're not the only one. And that is the focus of the community.
And that really is so important. And I like the idea that, because Frendo is an enclosed app as well too, that, you know, in my experience, certainly in socials online and, you know, since the late 90s, where people felt very vulnerable and exposed in certain groups. And we know that groups have maybe been infiltrated by pharma companies or by researchers like who are unethically using the data. So to have that protected space and have that balance of positive and, you know, like the not so positive experiences that we all have, I think that is absolutely fantastic. And in terms of the sort of citizen science approaches, as I would see it, as a scientist, I love data. And I think it's so important that, you know, as females, that we use all of that data that we have that comes with their cycle, be it good or bad or indifferent, but we can learn so much. And certainly I know a lot of younger women may not put things together, so they may not realize that, you know, the cyclical nosebleed that they get, or, you know, the feeling the joint pains that come maybe in the you know, mid-cycle as well, to maybe experienced by others and maybe linked. So in terms of the symptom tracking, you mentioned it was quite customizable. Can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Yeah, of course. It does focus a lot on pain in terms of pain area. So you can select, you know, Dearbhail. Okay, I suffered from, so the last couple of days I've had quite a bit of lower back pain. So I can select where specifically the pain I've had is. It can be in your rectum, it can be in your lower back, it can be in your vulva. You can really go into quite a bit of detail on it. And because, say, I would experience that type of pain quite regularly, I would, you know, I would leave those in the tracker. Whereas, you know, I wouldn't necessarily experience jaw pain. So I can click that off. So I can toggle that off to shorten basically what I see on the screen. And I can toggle off other areas of pain as well. But it does go into, you can also toggle off if you are not menstruating, which is a feature that we actually, we didn't start with. And that, you know, it's, our feedback from our community is absolutely vital. You know, we are still a startup. Like we need our community so much. We need the feedback. We are always learning. And, you know, I have recently had a hysterectomy, and so I see how these, you know, reasonably small things, but they mean a lot to other people, to all of us. So you can switch off if you are not menstruating, those kind of things. You can switch off, and you can condense, let's say, your tracker to what you want to see every day, every month.
And that's the key to it, isn't it? It has to be easy to use.
It has to be
user friendly, doesn't it? It really has to be so functional, because I know myself, I'm very good at tracking for a couple of days and then like, it's too much hassle. So it needs to be something that's really easy to use and fun to use, isn't it?
And it'll be continuous.
Reports, like,
sorry, I was just going to say, it'll continue to be improved upon, and you know, so we're always open to hearing from our community in terms of what will be useful. You know, our next phase will also be, we haven't announced this, but we will include an update productivity and like how you are in work, you know, to show also how this impacts your day to day, you know, how this is really impacting you at work or in university as well. So whether you've had to take sick days or productivity, not necessarily, now this isn't to show your boss, but it's actually to show you, you know, if you're, like you say, data, you know, you want to see at the end of the year how much this disease is actually costing you. Well, there you have it.
Yeah. And that's the thing as well too, that sort of, you know, impact that we very rarely talk about, like with endometriosis, isn't it? That, you know, and adenomyosis as well, that loss of function, that loss of time, that loss of ability to even, you know, focus, I think, you know, even at work or college as well, to even in school situations, you know. And it's fantastic to see that that's coming. In terms of reporting, are we able to generate reports then to maybe take to our healthcare professional appointments, or is it very easy to share that data as well?
Yeah, you can, but the power is with you at the moment. We do have requests from clinicians to have a dashboard, or to send it to your GP. See, but the power is with you, so you can sit with your GP at the moment, and you can share with them. So, for instance, if this was me kind of as my younger self, and your test results have come back, all clear, you're absolutely fine. Well, actually, for the last 3 months, I've had significant pain, and I want to send you this. I want you to look at it, or I want you to send you it. And I need you to take me seriously, because I have been bleeding, hemorrhaging. This has really affected my quality of life. I've been in bed for this length of time. I'm severely fatigued. I've been vomiting. So your choice is whether you just want to show the doctor he or she there and then on your graph. So you can go to your profile, which is the other feature where you can see a summary of what you have tracked, and you can show them there and then, or you can send them a report if you choose.
Yeah. And again, having that sort of very objective data in front of you in an appointment is so important, because we all forget, last month's symptoms, or we all forget that things have been going on, And is the data collectively maybe anonymously shared, like for scientific research, or is there any plans to sort of do that if it's not in place at the moment?
No, it's not. It's not shared at all for now. We have got in our terms and conditions, we have got that, within the terms and conditions, that we may share anonymized data. We certainly don't have any plans at the moment, but it will only ever be for better treatment pathways, and certainly not with any Facebooks or anything, at all like that. And we would certainly go to our community well before that and get their added permission for that. And any surveying that we've done in the past, let's say before we launched Frendo at Work, we've been inundated with people who want to be part of research, because I suppose, there's been so little research to it. But I can speak like as a founder and as a patient, and this is why I suppose I'm so, emotionally involved in this. It means a lot to me that, like, this whole project means a lot to me, and I would never ever let, anything be taken advantage of at all. But I do believe we do need more research, and we do need to use appropriate data to create that research, but it has to be used in an appropriate manner.
Absolutely, 100%. And to keep the trust of your community as well too. It has
Absolutely.
to be very transparent.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. And, for you, Friend, it was such a personally linked project. And I know you've worked in head of marketing roles for like some very, very big organizations. Can you tell me a little bit about maybe the challenges that you faced, like as somebody who was working, with a chronic illness, and also then having to set up Frendo and now Frendo at Work as well? Are there any particular challenges that you think maybe endometriosis and adenomyosis have, brought to that, or how you would have overcome them?
So do you mean challenges in terms of working for myself?
Yep. So any challenges that you would find in terms of, I suppose, did you find a difference between working maybe in the corporate environment to then change into working for yourself? Did you find that like it was an improvement, or
with my illness?
Was it so scary?
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, I think Yeah, I think it's the best thing I've ever done, and I think it's the scariest thing I've ever done. And I think probably the scary part is the financial part. I think, we offered Frendo for free for a year and a half, and I think most people are like just so supportive and understanding, and then we only got maybe one or two who questioned why we then charged a subscription, and it's quite a small subscription charge. But I wasn't getting paid, and as you said, it's out of it is. I'm immensely passionate, and I want to change, like most people doing things like you, most of us don't get paid for what we do in this, and I hope people one day understand that. But I think I was very lucky in my career. I moved to Australia and worked with the Olympic Committee, which was an incredible career, and I loved that. I worked on 3 Olympic Games, and it was brilliant, and I got incredible experience. But I think deep down, I think I always knew I wanted to do something of my own, and I wanted to do something of substance, but I never knew what that was. And then when I was diagnosed with endometriosis, I was just utterly shocked, like most of us were, at how little was being done, how little community connection support there was. And, little by little, I was meeting more people who suffered from the disease, who suffered in the same way that I had, who had gone for years and years like I had. And so I had then worked for a cancer startup. And then I was asked by KPMG to come and work for their startup division. So I had a bit of, I was getting experience in the startup world. And then I was living in Australia, and I'd had my 3rd surgery for endometriosis, and I barely got 6 months relief. And I then decided I have to move home. I have to move where I can actually take matters into my own hand and have the support to try and manage this disease myself. And then kind of everything almost fell into place. So I often think endo has also given me a lot in this funny kind of way, because I think it was meant to be. I was meant to move back from Australia. My mother was just the happiest she's ever been that I moved back, and I had a lot of experience from those jobs, but it was a huge, it has taken so much to get to this point, like from drawing wireframes, to trying to get funding from local enterprise office, who were hugely supportive, and putting my own funding in, some other funding, and there were so many days where I thought I couldn't go on, and for many reasons, because we had no money, and because I was in bed probably 2 or 3 days a week with just dreadful pain. And then when it was almost ready to launch, I found myself pregnant, against every single odds. It's just bizarre when I think back on it. But I suppose I always believe that, I always hope that it helps people. I really do. Yeah. But it is.
That's.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say that is the thing that people don't see with endometriosis and adenomyosis, isn't it? They don't see the behind the scenes, like they don't see the suffering, they don't see the days in bed, they don't see trying to work through the pain and, you know, work through all that, you know, the sort of side effects of everything that comes with that. And that's what makes
Yeah,
it difficult, isn't it?
I think, yeah, I think also, you know, people say, oh, you know, you're pregnant and, you know, you have a young baby, you'll have to kind of stop working. And I'm like, I'm used to working from bed, you know? So, yeah, no, I mean, that's why I had no other option really, certainly with the adenomyosis, to have the hysterectomy, because it was almost even worse after I had my child. And there were so many days where I could barely make it up the stairs, and I would lie on the couch with my laptop, not being able to look after my daughter. My, you know, partner would take over, and, you know, all I wanted to do was work and look after my child. And yeah, people just don't see it. And it's the same with employees. People don't see it because we're very good at getting up and looking okay. And meanwhile, every inch of our body is in pain. You know, we take what we can to get through the day. And yeah, it's a tough disease. Yeah.
It is. We all hide it well because,
Yeah.
you know, how many times have people said to you, "Oh my God, you look amazing, Dearbhail.
Yeah.
So how can you be in pain? What's going on here?"
Yeah.
But it's that sort of very hidden side of the condition. But I suppose that leads me into thinking then about Frendo at work, and I am so excited for this because there are so many workplaces that will benefit from this without a doubt, and also employees, because you know we now have somewhere to signpost them to. We can say, look, you know, our occupational health department or our employers, we can say, look, we have something now that can help with this. So do you want to tell us a wee bit more about the Frendo at Work site?
Yes. Yeah, great. I'm so happy to hear that you're excited. I'm equally as excited. And again, I suppose it stems from, you know, my own experience, but also so many experiences from the community. You know, we kept hearing from our Frendo community of horrendous stories of you know, some I can't even repeat because it's just discrimination. And you know, my own story, I suppose, I touched on it there, but some jobs were very supportive, but basically I think the issue is, again, like we all keep saying, people just don't understand the disease. They don't understand like, you know, it is an invisible illness, and that is that it's such a problem because we can turn up, we can look okay, and often we are not okay. But Frendo at Work is, as you said, as much for employers as it is for employees. It is it's basically it's a multidisciplinary approach. It is a program that supports employers and employees through awareness, and a program with resources to support employees, and also people with endometriosis and their network, because that is a really important element of it. Because I often think the support network are forgotten, and they're, you know, it's a hard role. You know, partners, parents, those supporting. So we provide tools for them as well. We provide workshops, we provide self-management tools. But basically what the program is it focuses on the chronic nature of endometriosis. So you can have surgery and you can get, support through your medical insurance to have the surgery, but you go back. And as I mentioned, mine came back within 6 months and there's no support in there in the meantime. So Frendo at Work supports through offering pain management, pelvic health, fertility support as well. In terms of, when I say fertility support, I mean, almost back to basics around, what to check, when to check. And because I never knew, I kind of didn't even know what AMH levels were up until my 30s, and kind of that myth busting. But also the fertility approach for those with endometriosis as well, and support for fertility for partners, and education and awareness for that as well. We focus on nutrition and having exclusive recipes for not that diet focus, but support for fatigue days. Like, how do we support and you in regulating your hormones, and how do we support you on those really, really tired pain days through nutrition and movement. So not pushing you on exercise, but enabling you to move better when you're in pain. And they're kind of the five, they're the key pillars, but what really overarches them is communication. And if I remember, for me, I was almost paralyzed in work because I just didn't know how to ask for what I needed and how to explain what it was. And so we have a specific patient advocate who, all of those areas are, they're expert led. So we have experts who actually run that program, and we have a patient advocate who works with me on the communication piece, and that is providing support for the employee, but also the employer, on what exactly is endometriosis. How does it affect someone on a day-to-day basis? How is it affecting my team member? And what do they really need? This isn't something to be scared of, or, in terms of, I'm not going to hire someone because they have it, but actually this is going to help me retain staff. I often talk about an event we did with Salesforce recently, because it's a really positive story. With two people came up to me afterwards, the manager and an employee, and she was just a lovely person. She suffered from endo. She just loved her job, but she felt guilty. She felt that, I think, that feeling that we've all felt of, I had to take more time off after surgery than I wanted to, and I feel guilty, and but I really want to keep my job. I just don't know what to do. I don't know how to explain it. And then her manager stepped in and she said, in spite of all of this, you're still my top performing member of the team. And neither of them knew really how to help each other. I think it's about managers and employers feeling enabled and empowered to help, because often, understandably, they're scared to say the wrong thing. So we give them the tools to actually help them, and I think that's the crucial part. It's actually giving the right information and giving them the tools to support. And I'm really excited about that. It's not about, you're doing the wrong thing. It's actually about, let's evolve, let's all work together.
And like, the communication is so important, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because often that's where it all falls down at the very beginning. If we don't communicate our needs properly, be that to, a friend, family member, partner, or an employer, it's very, very difficult then to get the needs right, isn't it? It's very difficult for somebody to understand your expectations if they've not been laid out. And likewise from an employer down as well too,
Yeah,
it's
and
very important
I
to get that
always
side, isn't it?
struggled. Yeah, I always struggled with that. And I think it is because you've possibly because you've lived with something for so long that you don't know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So if you if you can pinpoint what it is yourself first and foremost, it's part of the battle.
Yeah. And often we don't really know what to look for or what to ask for. And certainly when I
Mm,
speak to some companies, they've given some really good workplace accommodations, not just for people with endometriosis or not just for people who are going through fertility, but for lots of chronic illnesses and
mm,
conditions. And I think often, certainly as employees or even in a college environment or school environment, we may not know what's actually out there. And I think starting that conversation is so important, and like that's excellent that we're starting to see movement within this, and
mm.
very strong, powerful movement. As you say, you've got you've advocates there and you've experts in each area, which is really really impressive. But do you still find that we're still facing stigma in the workplace? Have you seen that around even starting that conversation? Is stigma still a real barrier to this?
Um, yeah, I mean, of course. No, I'm not sure it's stigma. I think what we see is, or what we will still be faced with, is the tokenistic. I'm going to, come in and do a
Yes.
talk for us. Well, I've ticked that box, but
Yeah.
is that really going to help the employee, their partner, who I think we really have to continue to talk about people's partners who are potentially dealing with, mental health issues of their partner, painful sex, intimacy issues, fertility issues. This is a societal challenge that we're facing. But yeah, I think for quite some time we're going to be dealing with people really taking this seriously, really investing in this. But I certainly see the big, the tech firms taking this seriously, which is great. I think law firms, and you know what? I think they see that they're not going to be able to attract female staff, and retain female staff unless they address these areas of women's health, including menopause, including other areas as well, of women's health. So it affects their bottom line, and that's the way that I talk to employers about it. Like, in a recent survey that we ran of UK women, 1 in 5 feel their workplace is unsupportive of chronic health conditions. So, and we see that women are actually looking for benefits. They're looking at jobs that provide benefits now as well. So I think, I think it is actually about bottom line, probably. But also there are lots of employers who genuinely care as well. They do care about valuing their staff.
I think that's probably a shift that we've seen in the last few years, isn't it? Where, health
Mm.
at work has become a bigger topic of conversation. And, if we are being cold hearted about it, yeah, the bottom line is that you can get more out of your employees. But
Exactly.
equally, the employee then can benefit then as well from any accommodations that are there. And, maybe even having to have that flexibility around their work, and maybe, accommodations that allow them to be more productive on days that they're not feeling as bad or in pain. So, Dearbhail, how is the best way to get in contact with you? Say, if we have, we work for an employer, or we are an employer, or if we have a situation where we'd like to bring Frendo at work in, what's the best way of getting in contact with you?
Yeah, you can email at work, ATWORK, at Frendo, FRENDO And all the information
Perfect.
is also on www.frendo.co.uk.
Excellent. And it's okay for employees to pass on that information then, say to their employer, and maybe for them to get in touch with you. Would that be okay?
Absolutely, yeah. What we do at the moment is I can come in and do an introductory talk if that helps. And you know, we have Marie can send over some information as well to directly to diversity and inclusion team or to the women's network team. They're often the teams that are best to get in touch with, or the well-being team. But
Excellent.
yeah.
That is great. I'll pop all the details in the show notes as well too. Dearbhail, it has been fantastic chatting to you, and I wish you all the best, not just with the Frendo side, which I know is so popular amongst a lot of the women I chat to, but also with the Frendo at work. I'm really looking forward to seeing the outcomes of this and the impact that it's going to have, and hopefully future us, when we have this conversation, we'll see that the changes that has made. And I think that's, you know, I think it's really good, and it's really good to see, you know, women leading this in business as well too. And again, you know, like yourself, taking that very strong step to go out on your own and to encompass endometriosis education and awareness into that. So thank you for all the work that you do.
Likewise, Kathleen, thank you for all the work that you do. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me on.
No problem. And thanks everybody for listening to this episode of DEARG, and we'll chat to you all again soon.